COVID-19, what are the risks and what are the benefits potentially of getting the vaccination, and should you vaccinate or not? My name is Dr. Richard Roberts. I'm a medical doctor and a doctor of biophysics. I was also the president and CEO of a pharmaceutical company for 24 years. I'm really grateful to you for coming back to my YouTube channel. Hopefully this will be very helpful to you. I just want to say in the start, I don't take any money. There's no commercials on this video. There's no place to donate. I'm here strictly for you. I want to help you, period. Now, there have been reports in the news that there have been some adverse reactions to the coronavirus vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine. Specifically, last time I checked, there were 6 anaphylactic reactions out of about 276,000 people who had received the vaccine. So first of all, an anaphylactic reaction is the most severe type of an allergic reaction, and it is potentially lethal, but the way this vaccine is being given is that everyone has to stay there for 15 minutes and be monitored. And the people who have the anaphylactic reaction, they get a shot of adrenaline, which is called epinephrine, and that helps to open up the airways of the lungs. They also get an antihistamine, which blocks allergic reactions, and they may get a shot of a steroid. So, and they've all been fine after that. So that's 6 out of I said 276,000. We're going to use even numbers. So it's called 6 people out of 300,000. That comes out to 1 anaphylactic reaction in 50,000 people that receive shots. So what does 1 in 50,000 mean? Well, first of all, the chance of getting hit by lightning, and being killed by lightning, I should say, is 1 in 500,000. So yeah, so the risk of the vaccine is 10 times more likely than getting hit by lightning. But who really cares about getting hit by lightning? It was ridiculous. And the 6 people who had the reaction, they were treated and they're okay now. Now let's look at some alternatives to this. If you drive a car, your risk of dying in a car accident each year have different ranges based on different states. But the highest risk is 1 in 5,000 people, and the lowest risk is 1 in 30,000 people. So if you don't, and that's for dying in a car accident, whereas for this shot, the vaccine for COVID-19, we're only talking about the rare case of a severe allergic reaction, and then they're treated and they're okay. So if you do not want to get the COVID-19 shot because of the risk, you definitely don't want to drive a car. I mean, forget it. There's like no comparison. Let me give you another example. You probably, if you or your children have had a middle ear infection or bronchitis or pneumonia, you've gone to the doctor and the doctor gave you penicillin. It could have been regular straight penicillin or one of the chemical derivatives of penicillin, which are like amoxicillin, ampicillin, and actually there's another group of antibiotics, cephalosporins, that you very likely might have had also. Well, the chance of having an anaphylactic reaction to the penicillins is 1 in 5,000. So you took the antibiotic and you got better, but you took a risk of 1 in 5,000 to have an anaphylactic reaction. But the COVID-19 vaccine, the chance of having an anaphylactic reaction is 10 times, or 1/10 of that, 10 times less, 1/10 of that amount. So the risks from the vaccine really look like they're virtually nothing. Also, for the vast majority of people, you're not going to get this vaccine, not going to even have access to the vaccine for another 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And by then, there'll have been many millions of people who've been vaccinated. So personally, look, everything I say is my opinion. You have to go by your own licensed medical doctor. But me, as soon as I can get that vaccine, hey baby, I'm getting vaccinated. I want this vaccine. Trouble is, I'm not over 65, and I'm not working in healthcare anymore. I'm retired, and I'm not living in a nursing home. I'm glad about all those things, by the way, at this moment. But as soon as I get the vaccine, I'm going to get it. Now, But why should you even get it? Well, I mean, who cares? If you're not in the super high risk group of dying from COVID-19, if you're not over 65 years of age, or especially in the 70s, 80s, or above, or if you're not suffering from severe obesity, then why even bother? Most likely, if you get coronavirus, you're not going to die from it. If you've been enjoying this video so far, I hope that you'll please give me a thumbs up, as you see below on YouTube, and also please press the subscribe button. The way I think I can make the contribution is by taking very complex or advanced issues that I've been involved in personally, whether it's in medicine or science or any aspects of business. Just tell me, if what the issues are in the comments below, and I'd be glad to look at them and try to make videos for you on those particular topics. So why bother to even get the vaccine? What are the benefits to you from preventing getting COVID-19? Because most likely, like I said, unless you're over 65, especially in your 70s, 80s, or above, or have a major risk factor, you're probably not going to die from it. Here's the issue, and I've been talking about this since March or April. If you go check my previous YouTube videos, we don't know what the long-term effects of this virus might be, but we do know that long-term inflammation in blood vessels is a major cause of heart attack, stroke, many other diseases, and also likely cancer to some degree. So if you get COVID and you get over it, then you're fine, right? Well, not necessarily. There's something been identified now called long COVID. There are many people, and we don't have the exact numbers yet, but numbers being thrown around are like about 10% of people who had COVID. At the very least, they're having long-term symptoms, massive fatigue, debilitating fatigue, depression that's not responsive to antidepressants, hair falling out, aches and pains in their bodies. Many times they've shown up in emergency rooms thinking that they're having heart attacks and nothing can be found. And these look like these are long-term effects of COVID, and maybe due to long-term inflammation in the blood vessels. And I'm just telling you, we don't know if 5 years from now, people are going to start having heart attacks and strokes that statistically they shouldn't have, given their age and other risk factors. They shouldn't have for another 20, 30, 40 years down the line. So you really don't want to get COVID if you can afford, if you can avoid getting it. There's a concept in war called, you don't want to be the last person to die in battle. You don't want to be the last guy to die in the war. So in other words, you have the two governments who are fighting. They make a decision. There's going to be a ceasefire at midnight tonight. Well, over the next 8 hours until midnight, you don't want to be the guy to get killed in that 8-hour period, because the war is ending anyway. We're now in the home stretch here, right? The vaccines are out, and more are coming. So if you can avoid getting COVID, you really should social distance and wear a mask, and only be around people who are wearing masks, because you wearing masks for you is not sufficient. Why does a surgeon wear a mask? Is it so that the surgeon doesn't catch a germ from the patient? No. It's so that when he talks, he or she, whatever, when he talks, doesn't send out germs through saliva or mucus into the patient and infect the patient's wound. So the mask only gives you limited protection. It's the other people who have COVID, who are speaking or laughing or or even breathing, although to a much lesser degree, that need to have their faces covered so they don't throw droplets of COVID-19 onto you. Now, what are these vaccines that have come out now, these RNA vaccines? I liken it to a factory making cars. You have the design of the car, right? The car is as a design. But then you're going to have all the details of the factory. You have the factory set up, and along the factory line, there are people at different stations. There are going to be robots. Some are going to put on the door. Some are going to tighten these screws. So you need to have detailed plans that take that design of the car and then translate that into what each station in the factory is going to do. Some car may need a screw here, another one may need a wheel there, and so you have to tell each piece of the factory what to do. The plan of the car, or the plan of a cell, is the DNA. That's the plan. But how do you have, how do you look anything different than one blob? I'm serious. What makes you look different than just a blob of protoplasm? And that is because a liver cell looks different than a skin cell, looks different from the cell in the eye, and I'm not going into all the different types of cells in the skin in the eye, and different than a cell in a gland, in a gland, different from a white blood cell or a red blood cell, the cells in the marrow, or the cells in the marrow that make them. If every cell in your body has the same plan, the same DNA, how are all of these cells different? And that's because what does things in your body, what takes actions, are, for the vast, by far and away, are proteins. And the DNA is just telling how each protein is made. What are the amino acids that make up each protein? But that DNA, only parts of it get shown so the proteins can be made. And depending on which cells you're talking about, different parts of the DNA get shown. That's how you have differences. But the proteins aren't made from the DNA. From the DNA, the parts that are shown, you have then chemicals made called RNA, and I'm not going to go into details, but then mRNA. It's the mRNA which is which are the instructions to tell the factory how to work, that go from the designer shop, meaning like the DNA, to the instructions to tell what the workers and the robot should do on the factory line. So you have the DNA, which is the plan in the cell, and off of that comes RNA, then mRNA, and mRNA goes to a part of the cell, like an organ, like you have organs in your body, an organ in the cell, and that mRNA is used to read what protein should be made. COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, it doesn't matter, is a very simple virus made of 29 type proteins, actually 28 or 29, but it carries inside of it the mRNA for 29 different proteins. So you have a choice. You can either you're going to get injected with mRNA. You can either get injected with a vaccine and get the mRNA for just one protein of the virus, and that's with a syringe, or you can have the virus inject you with mRNA for all 29 proteins, reproducing the virus in thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of copies, overwhelming your body. The way this is spreading, and now, as you know, there's a much more infectious genetic mutation that is now spread through Australia, and another one in England. By the way, there was another one in Texas going back, I don't know, a few months ago. So you're not going to be able to avoid, unless you're going to live in total quarantine, you're not going to be able to avoid this thing. The other thing is, so let's go. So what do you want? Do you want mRNA injected for one protein, which cannot infect you? It's just the one protein that the virus uses to attach to your cells. So you do that one protein so that your immune system can then make antibodies and attack. So when the virus comes with all of its proteins as a whole virus, the one protein it uses to attach to the cell gets blocked by the antibodies. You want to make antibodies against the one protein, or do you want to get all 29 mRNAs injected into you by the virus? That's what we're talking about. Before I move on, I just want to say I really appreciate, again, everyone who listens to the channel, my YouTube channel. This is, since I've retired, this is what I decided to do when I grow up. So thank you for watching it, and please hit the subscribe button if you feel so encouraged, and please leave comments, especially if there's topics, not just medicine or science, but any area of business or other areas of life, politics also. I've been involved at the highest levels of politics as a donor and advisor, so and a confidant. So I don't tell secrets, but I can tell you what really goes on in government and behind the scenes. So now one of the questions I get, and we're going to conclude with this, is someone says, I've had COVID-19, I have antibodies, should I still get the vaccine? Got to listen to your medical doctor, but my opinion is I'm not so sure that you should get the vaccine in that case. So coronaviruses are not new. What's new is this particular coronavirus that has some especially vicious aspects to it, qualities to it. So we know from coronaviruses that have infected many, many people over, decades and longer, that they can have a coronavirus infection, they can have antibodies, they lose those antibodies, and they can get infected again. And typically they've lost those antibodies over periods of like 3 months, 4 months. But that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen with this particular coronavirus, especially if you've had that whopping infection with it. So we really don't know. I think what you can do is, if you've already had coronavirus infection, COVID-19 infection, you can probably wait a while and see, how the vaccinations are going, and see what data comes out. See, because you have to remember, the only people in the world that have more than 1 year of experience with this virus are the scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology that created it. Nobody else has had more than 1 year experience. You go to a medical doctor, whatever your disease is, the doctor will tell you what happens 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. We don't know. So if you've had the infection, especially if you have antibodies, I don't think you need to rush to get vaccinated right away, and let's see how more data comes in. If you had antibodies and they've gone away, it's still not clear that you're going to get it again, because there is something called cell-mediated immunity. So personally, I would wait and see, unless you're in a truly, truly high-risk case. For children, on the other hand, the vaccine is not approved for kids under the age of 16. And it looks like young kids don't just not get symptoms or really get sick, but it looks like the virus just doesn't even take hold in their bodies. It just can't reproduce in their bodies. It's a very interesting phenomenon. As Dr. Fauci has said, it's a very strange virus. This is unlike anything that we've ever seen before. Really strange characteristics, which then makes someone suspicious about how it ever came to be. So with children, the overwhelming majority of children just don't get infected with it. So first of all, they're not going to be allowed to get the vaccine now anyway. But when they eventually can, it becomes available for them, we'll have more information and we'll have a more informed discussion at that point. Now, you could say, yes, there have been a tiny number of children who have died from, or been sick or died from an inflammatory disease from this virus, similar to Kawasaki's disease. It's where they get inflammation in multiple organs in their body. But you're always playing the odds. In your life, you're always playing the odds. For example, or the risks. For example, if you wear a seatbelt and you get in a car accident, the car bursts into flames, the seatbelt might end up killing you because you didn't have time to get out of the car. But the vast, vast, overwhelming probability is that the seatbelt will save your life, because when the car stops suddenly, your head doesn't go flying into the windshield. So we wear seatbelts. We take risks all the time. We know that a certain number of minors, are going to die every year. I'm sorry to say that. We know that a certain number of police officers are going to die every year. We know a certain number of people in construction are going to die every year. As a society, to live life, you need to accept that there are risks. The risk of this vaccine is really, really small. So when we're talking about the few children who have died or been sickened by this virus, young children, you don't make policies for everybody based on those rare events. Someone will say, if even one child can die, we're going to shut the schools, close down society. They think they're moral. That's not moral. They're causing pain and suffering and all kinds of other medical ailments, psychological and physical, on a whole vast population of people. So yeah, for now, children are not vaccinating. Okay, that's it. I hope I've been helpful. Please leave comments if you liked it. Tell me why. If you didn't, please tell me. And if you want to hear other topics about, again, business, even your personal business situations, financial situations, relationship situations, life situations, science, medicine. At the highest, most complex levels, I see my job, my role as taking those most complex things and sifting through them all and bringing it down to the concepts that everyone can understand. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your watching.